at the Transcorp Event Centre. I said Transcorp Trade Centre earlier. Maybe they'll do trade here, but it's the Transcorp Event Centre in Abuja, Federal Capital Territory, here in Nigeria, at the 2025 Afreximbank Annual Meetings, the 32nd. And of course, the show continues. I've really been looking forward to this conversation because now we're actually going to talk about event centers themselves. As you see, event centers bring all types of experts under one roof. We just talked about trade with the Caribbean. Now we're going to talk about event centers, and I'm very happy to have Feran Sonuga with us, who is the CEO of the Event Strategist, who is an expert in the field. And Feran, good to see you. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on the Global Business Report. You have been involved in a lot of events. I need you to tell the audience, why you've been invited here and why you're here. Go ahead, tell us.
Okay, yes. As you said, I've been involved in a lot of events. And I've been producing events for about 20 years.
Yeah.
A lot of them have been in Nigeria. One of the events manager and events production manager is Artex Lagos.
Yep.
And for anybody who knows Artex Lagos, hopefully a lot of people, exactly.
Yeah, but tell people.
It's been running for 10 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
this is year 10.
Yeah.
So I've essentially been leading the events management and production team for 10 years. And as you know, we met many, many years ago when I was the events project manager for Smooth FM. So all the luxury concerts, if you recall, the Casbah, all of that. And that I did for. So I've actually been doing a lot of large production events, corporate events, within Nigeria and actually also in the UK for about 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Fantastic. So you're the best person to have this conversation with. So first off, right, because I want to get to the importance of event centers. We're going to talk about the ICC. But let's start with private sector now.
Yeah.
What do you make of the Transcorp Event Centre and what's been going on with the Afreximbank the annual meetings? Well, how have you taken everything in as an expert in this field?
So Transcorp has done a really amazing thing, in that they've responded to the needs of the market in this event center. As most people know, Transcorp used to have the Congress Hall, now they have this event center so they can do more and they can cater to a larger target base people. So it's really interesting to see that a hotel in Abuja is expanding its shows the way Transcorp has, and we need a lot more of these types of event centers within Nigeria as a whole.
Yeah. Okay, so that's private sector. Let me go public sector now. Before this Afreximbank 2025 annual meetings, Arise News covered the West Africa Economic Summit, the inaugural one, at the Bola Ahmed Tinubu International Conference Center. A lot of heads of states were there, a lot of business executives, folks like yourself. There's been a lot of controversy around the cost of that center, the $39 billion to renovate it, which comes at current exchange rate comes out to $23 million, which is just about what it was used to build back in 1991 or 2 or so. What do you make of it all? As a player in this, what do you make of all the hullabaloo around that ICC thing?
So here's the thing. It costs a lot to do anything in today's economy.
Right.
Yeah? And if we want to compete, we have to have a lot of world standard event spaces. Yeah. So a lot of the times people are looking at they're looking at the money and they're saying, why is it so expensive? Everything is expensive. To build a proper state-of-the-art events facility, yes, it costs money. And you don't want because if you put planners, it's not going to be sustainable. It will start falling apart within a few years, and we don't have enough of these things. So, I'm not averse to the fact that there's a lot of money that has been spent, but it's more about you have to spend money to be able to get really good facilities that have good lighting, good sound. Even soundproofing an event center is a very important thing. So your acoustics has to be good. Your space has to be able to cater to a large number of people. There's a lot of business that happens in Nigeria. There's a lot of business that happens in Abuja. If you think about our population, the people that attend these events, they're just in the ocean. Really.
Right.
So we need more spaces like that.
Fantastic. Now, Gosh, there's so much to discuss around this topic. Okay, you just said there's a lot of business that goes on in Abuja. And I want to ask you about the dominance of Lagos and Abuja when it comes to these events. How important is it for other states to be able to compete? I mean, based on your experience, I'm sure, tell us, have you had any experience dealing with other states? How important is it for other states to be able to compete with Lagos and Abuja when it comes to these event centers?
I think the question isn't really about them being, because on the surface you can argue that other states have more land, so they can build bigger centers. Yeah? But then the bigger question is, how are you going to ensure that the support system to allow for all these other events to happen in these other states is there? There's a value chain. Yeah, there's logistics. There's services. There's the actual structure. There's so many things that you have to look at. So whilst we're saying yes, it would be nice for states outside of Lagos and Abuja to also be able to compete, the question is, how are you going to get people to those states safely and on time? Yeah? Have we solved our logistics problem? Problem. When they get to those states, are there enough service providers to be able to execute these events so that they're not bringing in service providers from Lagos or Abuja? Yeah. Is there enough support for these states to be able to do these types of large-scale events there? It's a myriad of different things, and you have to look at every single thing, and everything needs to be working in cohesion with each other. There needs to be a lot more collaboration. There needs to be a lot more thinking through the strategy as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, and how we can make sure that if we want to improve the economy as a whole, we're not just looking at one part of it. We're looking about that value chain.
Fantastic. Now, another thing I wanted to ask you about is insurance. How important, this is a topic I think needs to be discussed. How important is it to have insurance when you're putting this type of massive events together?
The simple answer is insurance is a must.
Yeah.
Yeah? And if you look at it from the perspective of the world we live in today, the cost of everything, you want to buy a new phone, it's costing over 500,000 naira for a decent phone, or over $1 million for a decent phone. Yeah. You're going to insure it.
Of course.
Yeah. So if you're going to insure something like your smartphone, of course you're going to insure your events. Because within the umbrella of your event, you have all the technical equipment. Here, this interview we're doing, you have your lights, you have your cameras, you have that is insured, because if something happens, if a natural disaster should happen, for example, this insurance is going to help you cover of these things. So it is not a nice to have, it's a must have for every organization. And I know that a lot of venues, they have their own insurance. A lot of the big events organizers, they have their own insurance. A lot of the vendors that have the technical equipment, they have insurance for their technical equipment as well. So there are different types of insurance. So there actually should be more companies who are targeting the events industry and designing insurance products that are for the events industry and all the different players.
Yeah, because insurance penetration is so low in Nigeria and low in the African continent. Okay, so how do you look at outlook? Do you see more event centers popping up as the years go by? We're celebrating what Transcorp has built here and so on and so forth in Abuja, right? How do you see things as far as the outlook is concerned? Do you see more?
The outlook is bleak.
It's bleak. You're being very honest.
It's very bleak.
Why is it bleak?
Because there are lots of things fighting against each other. Yeah. The first thing is availability of land.
Right.
Yeah. And then availability of financing. And then there's also the element of understanding what it is you're building and what you're building it for. Yeah. If I use Lagos as an example, Lagos is my base.
Of course. Yeah?
If I use Lagos as an example, there's a handful of event centers in Lagos that can do a variety of event types. if you're going to be doing an art fair, you need a certain type of venue. If you're going to be doing a music concert, you know, a certain type of venue. Conference, certain type of venue. Exhibition, trade show, you know, and the needs are not always the same. So there are very few venues that are versatile enough to be able to do that. A lot of venues that you see in places like Lagos are for social events, for weddings, for birthdays and all that, but they don't translate to corporate events. Yeah? So we even first have to think about what it is we're trying to do and why we're trying to do what we're trying to do. Yeah? And then you now look at where is the land. In Lagos, they would say there isn't land. Everywhere is choked. But there is land.
Right.
Because there are lots of structures, government-owned structures, that are derelict. You know, that nothing is happening, nothing has been happening for many, many years.
Just lying idle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we said, you know what, we're going to break down these structures, use these pieces of land that are in prime locations, because again, the location is very, very important. And then we're going to pull together a team of subject matter experts, people within the industry themselves, and come up with a blueprint of what is needed and what we need to design. You know, I know that there are a couple of people that are trying to do that already, and they're trying to build really large event centers, but then they also have the challenges of the economy.
Right.
But if everybody comes together and says, you know what, this is going to help tourism, it's going to improve the economy, it's going to create more jobs, you know, we will come together as a collective and start doing our research as to what needs to, what the problem we're trying to solve for is and how we need to solve it. Then we can start building more event centers. But there definitely 100% needs to be a lot more event centers.
Yeah.
You know, and event centers that can hold a larger capacity of people, like the one we have here now.
Yeah.
You know, like the ICC, you know, venues like that, we need a lot more of them.
Feran Sonuga, CEO of the Event Strategist, a fantastic conversation with you here at the Transcorp Event Centre at the Afreximbank 32nd Annual Meetings 2025. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate talking to you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.